What's up, Samurai? We are back in some more Genshin Impact. Excuse the reverb, excuse the echo. For those of you that just watch my Genshin videos, just a heads up, I'm moved into a new place and I don't have soundproofing set up in my room yet, so sorry headphone users. But anyways, today we're going to be talking about the new 5-star character coming in version 3.4, which is going to end up being Alhaitham. If you've played through the Genshin Sumeru Archon questline, you've already seen Alhaitham. So he's going to end up being a Dendro sword user, very similar playstyle to Kaching, Childs, but using Dendro elements, of course. So for those of you that just want the quick information, easy get in, get out, this is going to end up being his Ascension card. There will be a link in the description where you can download it, or you could just take a screenshot of it. He is going to end up taking new resources from the northern region of the desert. That's going to be up here over by that big old tornado that we keep seeing in the desert. That's going to be arriving in version 3.4, along with a new world boss, which I assume is also going to end up being, so there's also going to end up being another resource you have to grind out of that world boss. And then annoyingly enough, he's going to end up taking the same books as Wanderer did, so that's hilarious. His banner is going to end up being first alongside a rerun of Xiao, and then the secondary banner is going to end up being a rerun of Hu Tao and Yilan. So let's get into his first ability, which is universality. I don't know, an elaboration on form. Okay, so rushes forward, dealing Dendro damage to nearby opponents. When the rush ends, causing a chisel light mirror to form. Holding this skill will cause it to behave differently. So the hold enters aiming mode to adjust the direction of Alhaitham's rush attack, very similar to the teleportation of Kaching. So the chisel light mirror that's left behind, when this skill is unleashed, Alhaitham will generate one chisel light mirror. If there are no mirrors at this time, he will generate an additional mirror. Chisel light mirrors will have the following properties. When he possesses chisel light mirrors, Alhaitham's normal, charged, and plunging attacks will be converted into Dendro damage, and this cannot be overridden. When attacks of the aforementioned kinds hit opponents, the chisel light mirrors will unleash a projectile that deals area of effect Dendro damage based on the number of mirrors on the field. So think of generating the columns that Yaoyao has, while having a combination of what Wanderer has, where you end up building up the ring on your back and then you deal damage to enemies in order to end up unleashing all of them. So a total of 3 chisel lights mirrors can exist at once, and the chisel light mirrors will disappear one after another over time and will all disappear if Alhaitham leaves the field. Moving on to his ultimate, so it creates a particular binding field and deals multiple instances of area of effect Dendro damage. If chisel light mirrors exist when this ability is unleashed, all such mirrors will be consumed and increase the number of damage instances dealt. So quite literally, it's the same mechanic as Yaoyao, where you end up putting down all of her pillars, and then if you use her ult at that same time while all the pillars are down, it consumes all of them to deal a brunt more damage. So 2 seconds after this ability is unleashed, if 0, 1, 2, or 3 mirrors were consumed, Alhaitham will generate 2, 3, 1, or 0 new mirrors in return. So basically it's saying that if you don't have any mirrors on the field when you use your ult, it will then end up generating all 3 mirrors on the field. But if you end up consuming all 3, then you'll get none in return. So that's kind of an interesting mechanic. Moving on to his passive skills. So when Alhaitham crafts weapon ascension materials, he has a 10% chance to receive double the production. When Alhaitham charged or plunging attacks hit opponents, they will generate 1 chisel light mirror. This effect can be triggered once every 12 seconds. And then yet again, they really like pushing the elemental mastery with these characters, but each point of Alhaitham's elemental mastery will increase the damage dealt by projection attacks and particular field fetters of his skill and his ult by 0.09%. So that's not really that big of a deal, but the maximum damage increase in this way for both of these abilities is 90% at the maximum. Just speaking from experience, because Cyno is a character that is also highly based off of elemental mastery, and pretty much any character based off elemental mastery, even Kazuha is another character that is almost referred to as like an elemental mastery character. But in my experience, if you want to actually deal damage with them, just put it all into attack and just the usual DPS build, and that will end up more than likely dealing a heap more damage, depending on obviously where you want to fit him, because EM is going to be really good for reactions. Moving on to his constellation. So his C1 is when a projection attack hits an opponent, an elaboration on form's cooldown is decreased by 1 second, and this effect can trigger once every 1 second. So that's going to end up being his E ability. His C2, debate, when Alhaitham generates a Chisel Light Mirror, his elemental mastery is increased by 50 for 8 seconds, max 4 stacks. Good God. Each stack's duration is counted independently. This effect can be triggered even when the maximum number of Chisel Light Mirrors has been reached. That's interesting. His C3 ends up giving 3 levels to his E ability, and his C4, when particular field fetters his ultimate is unleashed, the following effects will become active based on the number of Chisel Light Mirrors consumed and created this time around. So each mirror consumed will increase elemental mastery of all other nearby party members by 30 for 15 seconds, and each mirror generated will grant Alhaitham a 10% Dendro damage bonus for 15 seconds. So that would be 30% extra Dendro damage if you use your ult and have no mirrors on the field, because it would then generate the maximum amount of mirrors. Or by consuming the mirrors, it's going to put EM towards your party members. The pre-existing duration of the aforementioned effects will be cleared if you use the ultimate ability again while they are in effect. His C5, of course, ends up giving his ultimate 3 extra levels, and then his C6, Alhaitham gains the following effects. 2 seconds after using his ult, he will generate 3 Chisel Light Mirrors regardless of the number of mirrors consumed. My God. And if Alhaitham generates Chisel Light Mirrors when their numbers have already maxed out, so if you generate like 4, let's say, his crit rate and crit damage will increase by 10% and 70% respectively for 5 seconds. Jeez. If this effect is triggered again during its initial duration, the duration remaining will be increased by 5 seconds. Man, that's that's pretty crazy. So for weapon types, you got a couple options. Obviously with the 5 stars, beggars can't be choosers, and EM sword would end up working quite well on him. So would Mist Splitter as well, or even like the crit damage sword or crit rate sword. I probably would just end up using the crit rate sword more than likely. His new 5-star sword is obviously going to end up being his best in slot, but for the most part, you could just end up using any combination that you want. It depends on how you want to use him. He is primarily a DPS character and does seem pretty greedy, just because when you swap off of him, he loses his mirrors and stuff. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't use him to be a support DPS. For artifacts, it seems like they're leaning towards the Gilded Dreams just because of the fact that it's got the elemental mastery to it. And as far as I know, there is no new artifacts coming with this update, but I'm not entirely sure on that. Now, as far as the artifacts that I would end up giving him stat-wise, I would focus obviously on crit damage, crit rate, and attack. With elemental mastery being kind of the main secondary stat that you could end up going for. Why do I have, oh, because he's HP. Okay, yeah, so I would probably end up using just attack percentage on his sands, if not elemental mastery, use Dendro damage on his goblet, and then crit rate or crit damage on his hat. Now, as far as his talent level ups are concerned, I'd say his normal attack is very important just because it's going to go hand in hand with his other abilities. More particularly, I would probably level up his E and his normal attack with his ult coming last, but it depends on how you want to actually use him. I would primarily be using him on the field at all times, melee attacking the heck out of everything, and so that's why I would prioritize these two over the ult. But generally speaking, you're going to want to get every one of his stats to 6 or 8 at the maximum. Unless he's going to be your new main, obviously you want to crown him too. Anyways, that's going to do it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to wish for Alhaitham because, just a heads up, that in version 3.5, Dea is supposed to be the new character as far as I've heard. And I'm definitely going to wish on her banner, although I don't expect to actually get her because I don't have enough Freema gems. But either way, I wish you guys luck if you do end up going for Alhaitham yourselves. I'm most of all interested in looking at the new desert area. I think that's going to be really, really dope. But anyways, smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want, support the channel, and have a wonderful day.